Hey, what's up, everybody? Video 44 coming at you another video. All right, so this is one of those rare occasions where I'm doing a Laker video without any news whatsoever. I'm just gonna throw some stuff in the wind and let's see what sticks. Don't plan on making up any rumors or nothing like that, but I just want to talk about my team because really, we're in the off season right before the draft, and I just had some things on my mind. Didn't study nothing, didn't listen to nobody, don't know what's going on past what I last spoke about. So I just want to put that out there before we start. Okay, so here's something that if the Lakers were to trade down, something that I cannot shake, that I would like to shake, is Bryce Sensabaugh's 235 pounds. That is what I cannot shake. That boy can't not defend, I get that. But when you have a 6'8 guy, 235 pounds, the body size alone is something to value, even if he ain't really a defensive player, because for some reason you can turn him into a much better defender than he's ever supposed to be. You got a piece that's very difficult to defend, and he's offensive. He can score like the wind. I can't shake that as something that should probably be on our roster. Now, granted, we already have that with Rui Hachimura, but again, we're all thinking about the Denver Nuggets now. We're all thinking about the Wembanyama possibilities with the length just being too much, even if you have talent. Everybody's considering what size means when you're trying to defend Gordon, Jokic, Porter, Bruce Brown. Like, these are the things that are in our head right now. And you consider other teams that are just as big, going to be getting big after the draft. Bryce Sensabaugh is a guy probably not supposed to be drafted till the 20 to 26 range, something like that, 20 to 30 range, something like that, in my humble opinion. I saw another mock draft that had him go at 16 to Utah, but I think that person had an emphasis on shot making. So he had all of the shot makers just scooted up in his draft, so it was understood that was the way he was thinking. I don't think that's the way the consensus is really looking at it, to be honest with you. But I really genuinely think that Bryce Sensabaugh's defensive issues could be overstated, given the fact that he's so massive and so gifted scoring the ball. Who does that sound like? Carmelo Anthony. Now, I'm not saying this dude's going to turn into Carmelo Anthony. In fact, I haven't seen enough footage to even put nothing like that out there. I haven't studied Bryce enough to put that out there. I'm just simply telling you that when somebody's that big, and I think Carmelo's actually bigger than that, but even when a person's that big, they're very difficult to defend. And that can wear down a defender. That can make it so that they're not likely to be as strong on the other end when you have to try to push around a guy like that. I'm not saying the Lakers take him at 17 unless something happens where his draft stock rises overnight or something like that. Maybe you would, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't have him that high at all. But I like the piece if he can turn into something that isn't a complete liability defensively. The reality is his footage showed us that he's a complete liability defensively, period. However, he's a rookie. He's a freaking rookie. So whatever you want him to be, just put him in enough drills and he'll improve. Now, some guys just don't get better defensively. But they told me Rui Hachimura couldn't defend. You see what I'm saying? They told me Rui couldn't defend. I expected Rui to come in and be a turnstile. Easy going layups, nothing getting past him, weak side deficiencies, all kinds of stuff that he proved was not the case. And now I'm happy to have Rui. But I'm not satisfied because Rui wasn't enough to defend those guys. We need another Rui, which is why I had us taking G.G. Jackson. But now that since a couple weeks has passed since my mock draft, I'm pretty certain G.G. Jackson's value is drawn backwards from where I had him. And he's probably down there with Sensabaugh, maybe even the second round to some. Although we know he's more talented than that. He's just going to take some time to develop. But that piece, for me, GG, offensive big dude, Bryce, offensive big dude, I just see the value in having that a little more than maybe I did when I did my mock draft, just simply because I'm further thinking about what that piece could mean in wearing defensive down. And a lot of these teams don't play no defense anyway. So this is what it comes to mind. I'm looking around, I'm seeing the back of the draft with a bunch of hot shot makers that can't defend, which means that's what's coming into the league. A lot of dudes that can shoot but don't necessarily defend, and a lot of defenders that cannot score. So if you see that being what's starting to just flush into the league by way of default, then chances are you're kind of going to want some of those players. Because that's just what the NBA is going to be made of. A bunch of dudes who can hit shots and can't defend worth a damn. So it's like, that's what it's going to be. You should probably get the pick of the litter. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. I'm like, look, it's a lot of these Keontae Georges, Bryce Sensabaughs, Jet Howards, they don't care about no defense. They just want to shoot buckets. And at some point in time, you're going to start finding out that more and more teams are going to get more and more effective hitting shots because of the influx of these gifted shot makers. And you're going to see more teams execute better down the stretch. And the teams that don't draft these players, if they don't already have that on their teams, which we do not, we're going to find ourselves losing close games to these shot makers, just like we did against the Denver Nuggets. You know what I mean? And I just see execution being something that teams get better at because of the strength of these type of players being available in the second round, or rather the back of the first round. So it's like it's not going to be too expensive to get or keep these guys. So if I'm to look at this draft and say shot makers that can't defend make up a good half of the draft, it seems to me, or good, not a half, but a good portion of the draft have guys that really are gifted at the art of execution, and that's something that we suck at. I'm starting to see the fruit in making sure that the players that we get are excellent at that, even though that's not what I really want. It's just what I see I probably need, and I'm growing to want to do things a bit more correctly just in general in life. So when I see the Lakers have a bunch of defensive players, we got guys that can, obviously a superstar core that may be a bit fragile to say the least. You think about a guy like Bryce Sensabaugh at 235 pounds. You think about a guy like Rui Hachimura, pretty much the same weight. And those are their backups that I can trust. Both are going to be very efficient shooting the ball. I can't really shake that as something that I probably should want. Now, the problem is if Bryce Sensabaugh is terrible defensively, he's going to give it all up on the other end. That could be a problem in theory, but not if you have the defenders that we have, if you can find a way to use them with him, which is going to be a little tricky because a lot of our defenders are forwards. AD. Bring me back around to obviously Vanderbilt. You know what I mean? Even a guy like Troy is kind of big. You want him at the 4, not so much the 3. Yeah. I look at some of our defensive players are basically in bigger roles. So if you're going to bring in your offensive players in those same positions, it may prove to be a bit tricky trying to get all of what you need out of what your roster will be. So maybe it makes more sense for us to go with a Keontae George, even though I cannot stand that piece, to be honest with you. I really can't. He may make more sense for what it is that we need, given what it is that we already have. So like a Jet Howard, if we can get him to be his best self defensively, his 6'8" frame and his ability to not turn the ball over, which is something I'm growing more respect for all of his defensive inefficiencies, he's going to turn the ball over less than most ball handlers. So that's a thing. You can weigh that against his defensive deficiencies and feel like he's a little better than people are playing him for at this point. When you got handles, you're 6'8", you can play the 2 guard, you shoot better than everybody else, and you don't turn the ball over. Now, him not turning the ball over could be a product of him not passing it enough. That could be a thing. But nevertheless, I'm starting to psych myself into believing that execution is something to value in this league when you look at a team like the Denver Nuggets. And they hit every shot they need to hit in order for you to have any shot. They need to miss those shots. They ain't missing them. And so it's like, okay, how can I improve my execution? Because that's where we need to get better. I love the fact that Austin Reeves is one of the better players in the league at that. So I know he's going to hit the last shot. He's going to get in his spots, dribble into the paint, use his footwork to try to draw fouls. Austin is definitely a plus in regards to execution specifically. But we need to still add to players that can hit the shot that LeBron passes to him. So I can't shake the fact that I probably should go with one of these archetypes that I don't prefer. But there's also another factor. You got to make sure that you're bringing in somebody who can help you now to make your timeline because you're the Lakers and you got Bron and AD. That's when it becomes a situation where I start thinking it makes sense to actually trade the pick. Even though Lord knows if I was GM of 29 of these 30 teams, I am not trading out this draft. But for the Lakers, for what it is that they need, if they draft a player that cannot help them this year, chances are it's going to draw away from the overall talent of the team for what it is that we're going to need, unless that player can step in and overachieve. So a lot of the players that you want to see come in and play right away in this draft may not necessarily be that archetype. All the dudes that I mentioned, they're going to have to take a year or so. Especially if you get a guy like Keontae, he just going to jack up shots. It's going to take some years maybe for him to turn into his all-star level self if that's where he's headed. We ain't got it. We don't have the time. Jet Howard, his defensive deficiencies, coach ain't going to want to play him. We've already seen that movie. You would think he would want to play guys who are great execution shot makers, but if they really can't defend, it will get on his nerves. It will. We've already seen signs of that. So that's why I'm kind of hesitant to bring in a non-defensive player. But if we were to go with like Leonard Miller is, I can argue Leonard Miller wouldn't even get on the floor with Darvin Ham. He wouldn't even get on the floor. You know what I mean? So it's that kind of thing. It's like, I believe in these players. I think the coach I would hire would play these players. But like that ain't what we're doing. We refuse to fire our coach for good reason. So we have to bring him something he's going to use. Now we can think broader in regards to blowing the team up and rebuilding a different thing or whatever. But at the same time, it's like, if you're not going to take steps toward doing that, then you got to make sure that what you have makes sense for you. Which is why I proposed a trade that I saw in the comment section of Laker Nation, where I said Porzingis and Corey Kispert for 17 and 2 contracts that we'd rather not have in Bamba and Beasley. I'm not saying that that's something that I would do most years, and I'm not saying I would actually be all that happy that we did it this year, because I really do love being in the draft that much. But it's not about what I love. It's about doing things correctly. And that's what the theme of this video is about. It's not about, because I have a preference about how I want my team built. And to be honest with you, we're not that anyway. So it's not about what I want in this case. If I get what I want, we might not have what we need. And so that's what I have to psych myself into understanding as I assess these talented players. My big board doesn't necessarily have to be the same as my draft board. Meaning the big board being how I have these players slotted versus what the teams need. When it comes to our team, we have specific needs that I don't prefer. I wish we didn't need these things we need, honestly. But because we need them, you have to address them, and this is how you do it. You take the best execution shot makers in this draft, if at all possible, and you turn them into their best selves. Keontae George, Jet Howard, Bryce Sensabaugh, G.G. Jackson, when he develops into that, he will be that. And there's a few others, of course, that I'm not thinking about. Podzinski is one of my favorites, but I don't think he necessarily should be drafted at 17. You got to trade back maybe into the second round to get him. Maxwell Lewis, I think, also fits that mold a lot actually, but he's outside of the range. So it's a lot of stuff that I'm looking at. I'm saying, okay, the 17 range may not be best for us. Now, me personally, at 17, I know who I would want. There are a couple players that I'm definitely sure I would want. Jordan Hawkins is who I'm taking at 17 if he's on the board. Cason Wallace, taking him, not thinking twice. Kobe Buffkin, taking him, not thinking twice. If these players happen to fall to us, these are the guys I'm taking. Grady Dick, I mean, come on. If a guy like that falls out of the top 10, he happens to be a 17, you take him off the strength of what you need. Now, here's the thing that I'm not certain about. When we talk about shot making and what we need, Jalen Hood-Schifino, if he happens to fall to us, you probably should take him based on value. But he doesn't address what it is that you actually need. Now, what I like about him is he's tough as nails, from what I understand. Very tough, good interior passer. Probably will help with some of the stuff that you want D'Lo to help you with, passing the rock to AD and Bron. He's going to be excellent at that. And so, in a nutshell, if you really want a big point guard, a 6'6", 215, who's probably going to get even heavier than that if he continues to hit the weight room, you know you got a good, solid piece that some think should be in the top 10. I think that in most situations, I want Jalen Hood-Schifino. However, in our situation, if I know I got one of them shot makers like Jordan Hawkins on the board, I'm going to take Jordan Hawkins for sure. Or a guy like Coulibaly. If Coulibaly falls to the Lakers at 17, of course I want Coulibaly. Problem is, he ain't a shot maker like that. So it doesn't address the need, and you got a player you need to rate on. But you look crazy for not taking him because people want him at 12 and 10 and 11 and all these other areas as well. So these are the things I'm looking at. I'm like, all right, if you're the Lakers and you find yourself in a situation like this, you may want to draft the best available player and then trade him after you drafted him. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get the most value for him, because, of course, a pick is worth more before it's drafted. But in a situation like this, if I just happen to get a high-level guy that I can't really use, which aren't too many of these dudes, to be honest with you, for some reason like that, something like that happens, I don't think too many outside of Jalen Hood-Schifino really make that actually the case. Maybe Coulibaly probably doesn't fit in that way. But like all the rest of these guys in this range, you should be very happy to get if they fall to you. Cason Wallace, as I said, Lively is a guy that I think would be great for the Lakers. If he's available and Hawkins is gone, Wallace is gone, Buffkin gone, you may want to take a look at taking Lively, because at the end of the day, he's a 7-1 center who will allow Anthony Davis to play a little more forward, which is what I ultimately would prefer. He doesn't really fit the modern NBA, so there's going to be circumstances you don't want to start him or rather play him. But if his three-point shot can fall, you know you got a heck of a shot blocker and somebody that you don't mind working into your offense. And it'll save you some money not trying to go after guys like Brook Lopez or some of these other centers that are going to cost you a little bit. May, be able to kill two birds with one stone by just simply picking up Lively and having him on a rookie contract for yourself. So I'm a big fan of picking Lively at 17 because I think that's a very good range for him. He probably shouldn't fall that far, although some have him falling past us. I think a good spot for him would be like Golden State and Dallas as well. So those are the teams that I think are targeting him. We're definitely one of them, in my humble opinion. However, this goes to a situation where I feel the same way about the Mavericks situation as I do ours in this sense. If Jordan Hawkins is available and Dereck Lively is available, I probably want Jordan Hawkins because I just know Jordan Hawkins is going to do things that you can't teach. He's going to wear people down in ways you can't teach, and I just have him valued higher, even though we probably need a center a bit more than we need another Malik Beasley-like shooter. At the end of the day, Jordan Hawkins would fit our coach's style so very much that it's almost laughable to see us pass on that player for really any reason outside of something like Cason Wallace falling or Grady falling. Other than that, you probably find yourself taking Jordan Hawkins. Problem is, as I said about the Mavericks, they probably want a player like Jordan Hawkins too, even though they should be taking Lively. They probably want a guy like Grady Dick too, even though they should probably be taking Lively. So I know that there are going to be teams that are likely going to want to take those shot makers and leave Lively on the board. Whether or not it's responsible for them to do so is an entirely different story. But I just think that he's one of the best shot blockers in this class. And when you have a need like those teams have, Golden State, Dallas, and the Lakers, to get more shot blocking, get a little more, get a lot more center stuff going, I think that that's probably something that these teams should really study, even if these shooters are on the board. So, in my mock, as you know, I have Lively going to the Mavs, but I can very easily see the Mavs getting lucky and Taylor Hendricks falling there, as to which they'll definitely take him, or just going with Grady Dick. I'm sure they like him a lot. If for some reason something crazy happens with the first top 10 picks, if like a Seward Thompson falls that far or something, obviously the Mavericks would be inclined to take that player too. So these are things I'm thinking about. I think Cason Wallace, his range is starting to increase. He can go as high as 6, to be honest with you, to the Magic. Although I don't have him ahead of some of these dudes like Anthony Black and Jarris Walker, there are people who like him that much, and I see it. I see exactly what they see. So these are the things I'm saying. Like if the Lakers, if for some reason Cason Wallace falls to 17, there is no reason of any kind that we don't draft Cason Wallace. He's too damn good to fall that far. Too damn good. And so that's what I say. Forget everything. You get him if he's there. And I want us to do more homework on guys like Nick Smith. Let's be very careful not to underrate certain players. Nick Smith is one of them. Dariq Whitehead is one of them. Players I just think that are not too high, but maybe later on we'll probably wish that we drafted them or at least had them higher on our big board. I think Nick Smith's probably one of those names. He's probably just more talented than we think he is based on his injury issues. But if those injury issues carry forward, the talent ain't going to make much of a difference, and that's what you're actually valuing him with that concern in mind. Chris Murray, another one of those players that I think fits, although he's limited, unlike his brother in certain situations. I've been listening to people talk about him. Some of the catch and shoot stuff that his brother does, catch on the move, shoot on the move rather, that's not Chris's game, but he is a sturdy piece that can do a lot for you, including play some defense with nice length. So I think that 220, 6'8", Chris Murray would not be the worst pick to trade down and get as well for the Lakers. Although I do have him going to the Kings, and would kind of be disappointed personally if he doesn't end up playing on the same team with his brother. I just want to see that. So yeah, these are the type of things that we're talking about. But yeah, Dariq Whitehead's value is starting to increase. It's starting to increase. I don't know if I have him in the 17 range. I do think he's one of the better fits for us, but the foot injuries, I just can't do it. Even though I love the piece for what we are, he plays a little more defense than a lot of these shot makers. He's a better catch and shoot player than some of these shot makers. So that is something that really, 220, 6'7", that's good size. But again, 220 on bad feet? Nah. You see what I'm saying? So if only he didn't have these foot injuries, I think this dude would probably go in the top 12. I don't think Dariq Whitehead is worse than a lot of players that are going to be drafted ahead of him. But the injury concerns with the feet are a real thing. And given that we have Bron and AD, we're both dealing with feet, it makes it very tough for me to see us taking him for even if we would trade down. It's too much of a risk, man. But let this be understood. He fits better than a lot of the players that we'd rather have. He fits better, man. And that's not going to be lost upon me as draft approaches. So, yeah, that's what I'm looking at, man. The Lakers, we got our options, man. We really do have our options. We could trade down, possibly get a couple of these picks. That would be great. Trade up, maybe get into the top 12, land somebody like Grady or Kobe. That would be great. Some of these second-round guys we should not poo-poo. because they are going to be the real deal. A guy like Jamie Jaquez is going to be the real deal. Oliver Maxence Prosper, I can see his value raising all the way up to the Miami 18. It would not shock me if Olivier get drafted that soon. These are things I'm thinking about, man, because some of these players are really, really good, and they're not necessarily being touted to be that good. A guy like Sidi Sissoko, I think he might be a little better than people think. He's 6'8", 200 pounds. Defensive prospect. It's only going to get stronger. So these are things I'm thinking about. You know, I don't see Azur and Amen Thompson falling too far, but I do think the possibility of them falling some could shake things up in this draft to where you see some unexpected trades for teams that may be targeting them that didn't expect them to fall. If for some reason a team that didn't necessarily want those guys just happen to land those guys, again, it could be just like I said with us. If we were to get something that we know we should take, trade out of it, and that could create opportunities that we don't even see coming. So that's what I see. And this is why I said what I said yesterday about not necessarily reaching for a point guard just because you don't see nothing in the landscape that allows for you to see a point guard being available. Once you start seeing draft day trades, you're going to start seeing rosters shift. And as those rosters shift, the needs for those teams to keep certain players are not going to be the same anymore. Suddenly, I don't need this point guard anymore. Suddenly, this guy has a shorter rope because there's a guy in front of him who plays the same position. At that time, you will see your point guard emerge as somebody you can acquire. You don't have to search for today's market for what it is you need. You just need to let tomorrow come, and you'll see it come about. So that's what I'm saying for this offseason. Do not be certain that you're not going to see some unprecedented names suddenly be on the trade block based on how these teams draft, because this could be a thing. I'm looking at Orlando with their point guard position. They got a bunch of point guards. They don't need all of them. They don't need Anthony. They don't need what's that kid, Suggs. They don't need all of those guys. They got 2 picks. They can draft point guards. They may get Cason Wallace. They may get Grady Dick. They may get, Anthony Black even. They may go with Ausar Thompson. They don't need all them point guards. So I'm telling everybody, same thing with the Rockets. If they take Amen Thompson, what's going to happen with Porter? That's somebody I'm targeting if I'm the Lakers. I don't care about Chris Paul and that garbage. Bring me one of them youngsters that's going to be something tomorrow. Bring me Porter. And so these are the type of things I'm thinking if I'm the Lakers. I'm not worried about the point guard position more so than to say, let's get Schroeder back on this roster as soon as possible and let D'Lo go if somebody's talking about paying him any more than $20 million. Because if at $30 million, like we were talking about yesterday, it's not going to work for me. I understand that if you have lesser years, which is what the key is, then maybe people would think that is a plus and you'll add more cash to get less years. But at the end of the day, if I don't expect him to play up to $30 million, he's eating up too much of my cap. I don't care about the years. It could be 1 year, 2 year. I know that if I even get him on a 1 year deal, I ain't going to be able to trade him at the deadline at $30 million. Nobody's going to want that. That's almost like trading Westbrook. You're going to have a hard time getting rid of that. So I'm not going to sign up for that to begin with. I'm not going to do that. I take my chances with that minimum point guard and Scottie Pippen and just put the ball in Austin Reeves' hands and LeBron's hands. I don't have to go through that. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I'm looking at the point guard position. And plus, if I keep my 17th pick, I'm getting a guard. I'm likely getting a guard. You know what I mean? Even though I told y'all we would get G.G. Jackson, again, I just don't think his value is there no more. I think you're probably going to have to trade down to make that make sense with G.G. But we'll see as the draft approaches on Thursday. But I just don't see him going ahead of 25, 24. He's going to be down there 30 maybe. It could go that far for G.G., I think. Because they're just more ready-made prospects that kind of do the same thing he does, and he's not as good defensively as I thought he was when I said we should draft him. He's not. I thought he would be an upside defensive player. He's a little more of a liability at this point with the upside of becoming average, not what I was signing up for. So that's what kind of has me hesitant about GG. Most of his gifts on the offensive end, just like Bryce and some of these other guys in this draft. So for me, I'm likely taking a guard. Even though I value Jalen Hood-Schifino at 17 and he's there, I probably think I should take him. I don't know if he just shoots well enough for me for what it is I need. So these are the things that just frustrate me. Maybe I trade down if I get Hood-Schifino. Maybe I trade him to the Nets and take their 2 picks or something. I try to pull off. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking, man. I like Hood-Schifino. You know I do. It's just I just know what we need. I know what we need. We need shot makers, man. So shot makers and bigs who can put the ball on the floor a little better than Rui can, which is why I had GG. Also why some have Jet, big guys who can put the ball on the floor. So it is what it is, man. That's just what I'm thinking. It's all about the draft. Free agency is, for me, it's not the greatest pot right now. And we're stumbling into having to just re-sign D'Angelo Russell just because he's not we're not going to find much better in theory, which I don't, like I said, I told you what I think. You just wait. Just wait for it to open up. And so that's really what it is, man. The NBA trade market is destined to open up. It's inevitable. Even if you can't see it, it's just the nature of how things move. I draft this point guard. Now I don't need you. Maybe another team wants my point guard now that they drafted something else. So that's going to move some stuff around. Now my depth chart looks a little different. Somebody else emerges. Somebody like Andrew Nembhard emerges. Boom. Now I don't need this player as much anymore because now Nembhard is taking a bigger role. These things are inevitable. Point guards come out of absolutely nowhere. And we know that. A lot of these dudes that have been drafted over the last couple of years, they may emerge. And RJ Hampton or somebody, he may emerge as a starter. You don't know. But that can help overall what it is you're looking at. And so that's what I'm saying. Let's not overreact to the market. Think that the market's not going to open up. Think that we can't get a point guard unless we sign overprice somebody or bring in somebody at a price that makes them happy. I don't care about that. Make me happy as a fan and keep us under that tax apron with a good enough team that can get us somewhere. And that's the goal. So for me, it's rookies. It's using your the players that you drafted last year, putting them in positions to play, and not psyching yourself out in any way from doing so. Because South Bay is one of the best teams in the G League, and we know a lot of those guys are ready to be pros. If not this year, then next. So that's what's on my mind, man. We gotta stay youthful, keep the balance of wanting players who can help you now, but do not lose sight of the fact that you don't need them for much longer. Because Bron and AD are not gonna be together for much longer. Bron is my age, 39, basically at the end of this year. So as far as us trying to make sure we keep something that has, keep a balance there. That's all I'm saying. Keep balance. Because your timeline ain't that long, and these picks are going to last a lot longer than that timeline. Same goes for drafting for Darvin Ham. We got to keep balance. If for some reason we end up drafting a player 2-3 years down the road, Darvin's not our coach anymore, you still have that player. That player is still in the league, moving around however you drafted him, however you develop him. So we got to keep the balance there too. I want to draft somebody he's going to want, but I also want to draft somebody that I'm going to want long after he's gone. So that's real. Especially if he keeps on doing stuff that we don't like, we might end up firing him next year, and then we stuck with a player that we drafted for him. Got to make sure that makes sense for us. So these are things I'm thinking about, man. I don't think nothing is off the table right now in regards to the Lakers. Just simply because you don't really know how much longer LeBron gonna play. Nothing's off the table. I don't know how Jeannie views bringing in Bronny. If she really values keeping LeBron, maybe she's gonna try to reunite him with his son. As I said last night, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world, but I also think it's a good chance we're not going to have our natural pick next year. Very good chance. And it's a very good chance he comes out of college next year, too. Very good chance. So these are things we got to consider. But we also got to respect the fact that he may not. Young fella may stay in school for a couple years. USC is a wonderful place to be. I'll tell you, I've worked there for a couple years. I also worked somewhere around there as well. USC is one of them colleges that you feel good about just hanging around and being there for more than 1 year. It's just the environment that is. So I'm telling y'all, the chance of him staying in school, probably not great, but I think it's greater than if he would have went to certain other schools. And that's coming from somebody who stomped around that area. It's just fun to be there. So that's I'm telling y'all, especially this year, you got Kobe's daughter there. It's like a thing right now to be at USC. And so I would not be surprised if he tries to stick around and get a little more polished game and try to come out in 25. Would not shock me at all. So I'm just preparing everybody, including Bron, for that. LeBron James, like, yo, don't be so certain your son's going to want to come out that first year, bro. He may not. He genuinely may not. And I think you should support that, too, because the more he stays in college, the better he's going to be as a pro. For real, for real. I think he's only showing us his progression is getting better and better, and I think he's going to be a starter. I got him being like a Eric Bledsoe type player. That's how I have him. He's a little undersized, but very burly, very strong. Can do a lot of stuff. Great execution shot maker too. So I'm telling you, I'm high on Bronny, and it ain't because of his name. I just like the player. He's a little undersized, but if he can put on some defensive skills, if he can turn himself into a lightweight Casey Wallace defensive kind of piece. I don't know how he is defensively, but his shooting, he's a much better shooter than his pops. It ain't even close. And I know people gonna be like, what? No, he is. He really is. He's a natural shooter. So that's what I like about Bronny James. So yeah, man, there's some things to consider if the Lakers happen to lose their pick next year. The Pelicans are likely going to choose, or they're definitely going to choose between this coming pick and the following year's pick. So we just have to be ready for being out of a pick, and because of it, the idea of maybe trying to acquire a pick in one of those 2 years now might not be the worst thing in the world. Might not be the worst thing in the world, especially if you expect rebuild could come that year or thereafter. It might be wise to try to solidify making sure you have a young asset in a year where you likely won't. That's exactly what I'm thinking. Pelicans going to take our pick either next year or the year after that. Find me a first round pick for both of those years. That's what I'm saying. Find me a first round pick for both of those years, and we can do it. We just have to get creative. So that's what I'm saying. If we could find somebody that wants D'Angelo Russell, I would love to do a sign and trade, because a lot of times you can get good value at 20 million, 15 million amongst 2 or 3 other pieces. Give yourself even more flexibility. So if somebody really wants to pay him $30 million for 2 years, trade that. Get a sign and trade going, even though, never mind. That sends us over the tax apron, I think. So, no, it doesn't. So long as we don't bring back a player that was signed and traded. So, yeah, in my scenario, it works out. Yeah, in my scenario, it works out so long as we're not bringing back somebody in that same vein. Kyrie Irving, stuff like that, that'll send you right over the tax apron. Also, for those of us who want Kyrie Irving, just be patient. Be patient. You don't have to get him this early. You can get him in a trade deadline. You can get him next season. But what we don't want to do is sign into a contract that sends us over the tax apron and then have no way of actually putting together the team that we want him to have him on. His priority right now is to just get his contract. Once he gets that contract, then he can get back to doing whatever he does on the court, and then from there, obviously he could find himself in another situation if for some reason he acts up. You know what I'm saying? Let's just rip the Band-Aid off. If he acts up after getting signed, that team is going to want to trade him, and then from there, you can acquire him if you want to. Now, if he does act up, you're probably not going to acquire him. But that's not the point. I'm saying be patient, because if we try to do a sign and trade for him right now or keep pushing this narrative, we're going to really send ourselves over the tax apron, as to which Genie is not going to be pleased with that. So, I feel the same way about him as I feel about anybody else who wants to be on a championship team. You got to invest in the team itself monetarily. Got to give back some of that cap space money if you really want to be a part of a championship squad, man. You have to. So that's what I'm saying to everybody. You know what I mean? If you want to be $50 million and you're going to be on the Kings, you're going to be some other team. They ain't going to be the Kings, but some other team, Definitely not going to be the Kings because they got De'Aaron Fox. They're not doing that. But that's another thing. Okay, so I'm looking at the Kings. How long is Davion Mitchell going to have to play behind somebody? How long? Because for me, I'm ready to acquire that piece right there. Give me Davion Mitchell. There ain't too many defenders better than Davion Mitchell, and his offense is improving, and he's now somebody who's developing in year 3 into somebody who you can definitely rely upon. His last 2 years, you needed to let him get to where he's going to be this coming season. I'm jumping ahead of that. By the end of this season or the end of next season, you're going to see him as one of the best on-ball defenders in all of basketball. Probably all-star upside. So I'm not waiting until he becomes that. I'm going to get him while everybody still thinks of him as a role player. I'm putting him on my team because I already know who he is. So if I'm the Lakers, that's somebody I'm targeting. Do you really need how many point guards y'all got over there, Sack? Are you even a defensive team? Why do you need a defensive dynamo? You know what I mean? You need more of a shot maker. I'll give you 17 because I think he's actually that good. I'll give you 17, and then we could work out something else as well to make the numbers match. I'd take back Davion Mitchell and would think nothing about it. Just put him on my team and get ready for the defense that he's going to bring to the team and the shot making that he's starting to develop. See, these are the type of things like while we're looking for certain other pieces, you got to look back into the draft a couple years ago and see who was not quite coming about the way they're supposed to, but still has the upside to develop where you want them to be. Boom, there's one. Now, should Sacramento be necessarily wanting to get rid of him? Hell no. They're lighting the beam with Davion Mitchell. He's the best defensive player. They don't play any defense. So if I'm Sacramento, I'm giving me the finger. But I'm telling you, as the Lakers, that's somebody I'm targeting. I'm targeting him. I want him. You know what I'm saying? Pelicans are shaking things around. They're never going to give me what it is I want. But Jose Alvarado, another one of those players, little dynamo defensive players. We trying to get point guards? Maybe they shake him loose. I don't know. He's coming off injury. Type player I want on my team. Even if he's not starting nothing like that, give him the Patrick Beverly role. He's a dog. He's going to make things happen. He's going to make things very hard for teams. Guy like Bruce Brown, different series if he has to deal with a guy like that. Even though he's bigger, different series. So I'm telling you, it's like these are the type of things like get me somebody with some dog in him. I want the Lakers to get me somebody with some dog in him. Don't bring me no hesitant because we got some of that already. We don't need no more of that. I need a dog. I want somebody that's going to be mad at the game and go take it out on the game, on the other team. And that's how I feel, man. Give me a dog. Give me somebody with that killer instinct. Get me somebody with that chase it down. Get me somebody with that overall, I'm going to take it from you. I don't want to wait for it. because that's what we don't have in our core right now. With respect to LeBron and AD, that's not exactly what they bring to the table, personality-wise. I want that dog. So that's what we need. Find somebody with some dog in them, Rob. I guarantee you'll be happy you did. Somebody that looks Darvin in the eye, and Darvin will be happy to put on the floor because he know he's going to run through a wall for him or 3 walls for him, that kind of thing. Give me a dog. So, yeah, that's what I'm saying to the Lakers, man. See, I didn't have nothing in mind, but I knew I could bring y'all some content because this stuff is in my soul. I'm a Laker fan for real, and I know what we need, even though it ain't necessarily my preference on things. So that's pretty much what I got, man. I'm ready to eat. I'm starving. I'm going to go on my nice little walk, do my little thing, start on the day the way that I love to, but I wanted to first give y'all this content, what's on my mind. My name is BDL44. I thank you all for watching. I'm out.